It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right, America, good morning. If you're just joining with us, you're listening to America's Voice Now. We're in our third segment of the morning. If you're just joining us, I apologize. For the last 2 days, we had a number of issues. One, we had major internet challenges on the first day. And yesterday, all the power went out. Somebody hit a substation and knocked out the power to our entire studio. And so we were electricity free, off grid, until sometime yesterday afternoon. The topic that we're hitting on this particular segment is, I think, important for us to recognize the safeguards that were put in place by our Constitution and the wise elders of our day who helped to put together what has been the only true government in all of human history that was based upon your rights first and foremost, and a government subservient to you, to we the people. And we have lost the ability to, we've allowed the courts, the judiciary, we've allowed Congress, the legislative, and we've allowed President Obama and numerous presidents before him subvert and twist and corrupt those principles. Our original founders' idea and intent was that each division of the three aspects of government would act as a check and a balance against the others descending into tyranny or rising to a level of power which would enable that particular entity, whether it was judicial, legislative, or executive, to rise to a position of tyranny. The problem we now have is that all three are working together in concert. And the best efforts that was put together by our founders is no longer viable. See, Thomas Jefferson said to us at one point that, and I have to paraphrase this because I don't have the time to look it up for you, but essentially what he said is, at this point, all of our and this was around 1825. At this point, all three branches of the government have conspired to strip the states and the people of their power, that the government is seeking to make themselves all-powerful across the board, over the states, over the people, that they have subjugated and stolen that power through usurpation. And that all three have violated the tenet of the concept that these three independent respective divisions of government would act as a check and a balance against each other. The truth is that the surveillance court, the FISA court, this is the one that was created by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. They're supposed to be issuing warrants on cases too secret to go through normal court channels, right? This is the one that issues the warrants that nobody can know about. This is under the Patriot Act. It's handpicked. Handpicked. So they've judge shopped. These guys are supposed to act as a bulwark against trampling our civil liberties, against our invasions of our privacy, against the limitations that is being imposed upon every American's free speech, your right to worship, your right to assemble. I mean, we can go through the list, guys, of every one of the Bill of Rights and find examples, immediate examples, that have just occurred where those have been violated by government for government's own nefarious purposes against you. Your right to assemble? Well, guess what? You're no longer allowed to assemble. Now there are free speech zones in Washington, D.C., where you are caged up. You are now subject to arrest if you speak out in a place where anyone who has Secret Service dedicated security might even be in the building and you'd have no idea. But you're protesting in front of that building constitutes a criminal act on your part. So exactly how is it that we're supposed to redress our grievances with our governor, with our government then? What are we supposed to do? Write another useless letter that they use to stoke the fires of tyranny in Washington? Send them another email? It's beyond comprehension that our nation is willing to sit down and accept this level of abuse. We have lies being told to us by the highest man in the world. The most powerful man in the world tells us lies and is exposed for those lies literally within days of the last one occurring. The Department of Justice does nothing because they're appointed by him. You can't appoint a special prosecutor because Eric Holder's the guy who has to appoint that prosecutor. And if you think for a moment you're going to get an objective person, you're fooling yourself. The courts refuse to stop the man. And he appoints those. He appoints the justices to the Supreme Court. And he appoints justices to the federal courts. You don't think that's called stacking the deck? You see, the problem, people, is that the Congress has been compromised beyond salvage. They can no longer act on our behalf because they have sold themselves and their allegiance to money, power, fame, fortune, and keeping whatever skeletons they have locked up in their closet. If the NSA is building a dossier on you, and they are, and the IRS is contributing, and Social Security is contributing, and Department of Homeland Security is contributing, don't you think they have the same files on people in Congress? Well, of course they do. And they know in Congress who's got a drinking problem. They know in Congress who's philandering around on their wife. They know in Congress who's got a problem with drug addiction. They know in Congress who has a problem with little boys or little girls underage. They know who's got a bad real estate project they did, like Harry Reid, stealing millions, misusing his government authority and his insider's knowledge to go out there and enrich himself. They know that. And they've got empirical documented proof of it in their own private communications, via phone, via writing, via email. They know who the players are. So how hard is it, do you think it is, to simply have someone visit Senator so-and-so or Representative XYZ and say to them, you know, you don't know who I am, but I just thought you might want to see this. and slide them an envelope. And in the envelope is either a printout or perhaps a statement taken out of what they thought was a private email. Or maybe it's a photograph of them in the arms of a woman that's not their wife. Maybe it's a picture of them at a party in a compromised position. You see, the point is this. They have been corrupted beyond all salvage in Congress. And therefore, I agree 100% with General Vallely that it is time for us to remove them and demand a forced resignation. How do we accomplish that? Well, for starters, it's up to us as a massive citizenry to stand up and say, we will tolerate this no more. I mean, I'm gonna throw this out to you as a scenario and ask your opinion or ask you to have this discussion with yourself. Your lifestyle and your way of life for the last 5 years in specificity, but for the last 15 really, has been going downhill. Your quality of life, your overall impact in society in terms of your ability to make a difference, your business is under pressure, perhaps under threat for its very existence, or the job that you serve is in a business that is also under threat for its very existence. Our jobs are being given away. Our money is being stolen and siphoned off and redistributed around the world or into the pockets of people that really, are so unimaginably wealthy that we can't even conceive of it. It's like trying to sit there and conceive of what does $1 trillion really look like in bills. So I'm going to ask you one question. What is it that's so valuable to you that you're willing to allow this to go on? I mean, what is it that you have that you're unwilling to give up? What is your addiction to whatever it is that you've got? Is it something that you own, a possession, a car, a home, a business? Is it some way of life that you continue to try to pretend you still have? Is it control over your family, which is rapidly being stolen from you as your children are being indoctrinated into a Hitlerian youth? What is it that you have that is so valuable to you that you are willing to sacrifice everything to maintain a tenuous hold upon it? Patrick Henry said to us, "What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery?" What is the thing that has you chained to your little personal doghouse that stops you from freedom? And if whatever that is so important to you that you are willing to remain chained to your own prison, because it is a prison for you. I mean, is it your comfort? Is it your fear of the unknown? What is holding you back? You know, the first part of that quote from Patrick Henry is even perhaps more telling than the actual last part. You know, he was standing before a group of men, and he was attempting to persuade them to stop being fearful of the consequence of taking up arms and fighting against a tyrant. And they were arguing back and forth and chattering endlessly about this and that and the next. And he finally got frustrated. And he stood up and he banged his hand down and he said, "Gentlemen, it is vain to extenuate the matter. You're wasting your time. You gentlemen, you cry peace, peace. But there's no peace. What peace is there? The war has actually begun. It's upon us. It's here. You see the evidence all around you. The next gale that sweeps down from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. My God, our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? There's men dying around us, and we're sitting here chattering inanely. What is it that you gentlemen wish? What is it that you would have? Is your life that dear to you? Is that peace that you have told yourself exists so sweet that you would purchase it at the price of chains and your slavery? I don't know what course the rest of you men are going to take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death. That was a man of courage. In the face of his fear, in the face of what he perceived to perhaps even be a hopeless battle. And yet he exhorted those around him and said, "Look at you. Look at you. Our brothers are dying in the field. And here you sit, chattering like gossiping fishwives. The battle's joined, and you want to sit here and argue about nonsense." So I ask you to ask yourself, what manner of peace is worth your very soul? What is it that you possess? What is it that you dream of? What is it that you hold so dear that you would sit here paralyzed in fear, that you would surrender before you even join the battle? checks and the balances no longer work. The long train of abuses, the usurpations, the design is clear. We are being reduced under absolute despotism. It's not just your right. It is your duty. It is your obligation to throw off the chains of tyranny, to provide new guards for our future security, for our posterity, for your life now and the lives of your children and your children's children. We have patiently sat and suffered. We have attempted to plead. We have attempted to beg for peace, for our freedom, for our liberty. We have appealed to their conscience. We have appealed to their ethics. We have appealed to their morality. We have appealed in the very sight and eyes of God himself. We have been rebuffed at every chance, every opportunity, every window has been slammed shut. Their path, their chosen goal is clear for all to see. And the obligation is now up to us. The ball is in our court. Freedom, liberty is ours to lose. There will be a time when you're going to have to make a choice. When you'll no longer be allowed to sit upon the fence. Knowing where you stand and being prepared to defend that. That's all that will matter then. Your home and your car and your job, your dreams, your aspirations, none of that will matter. The reality will be here before you know it. And if you haven't made a determination, if you haven't decided why and how, if you don't have a firm belief and a firm understanding, if you don't have a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, and if you have not already made the commitment in your heart and in your soul and in your mind that you will pledge your life and your fortune and your sacred honor, then you may not be able to make that decision at a later date. Got to tell you, the time for you to make your decision is rapidly closing. tyranny that you experience today, that you see going on all around you, that which you've chosen to ignore because it just hasn't reached you yet. And I'm reminded of Mueller, who sat there and said, I don't understand. First they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't one of those trade unionists. And then they came for the scholars and the teachers, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a scholar and I wasn't a teacher. And then they came for the gypsies and the Jews, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a gypsy and I wasn't a Jew. And they came for the businessmen, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a businessman. And when the day came when they came for me, there was no one left to say anything. History repeats itself. You've been listening to America's Voice. I'm going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk about this issue about Obamacare and the hub. One of the things you can do civilly disobediently right now is to opt out, not participate, absolutely refuse. Do your part to help this thing collapse under its own weight. We're going to talk about why things collapse under their own weight. I want you to think about it. We'll be back in just a minute.